Alright, a couple of ground rules before we get started. So yes, this is the Chronicles of Shingeki no Kyojin or Attack on Titan. I'll be covering the entirety of Attack on Titan from the first page to the last, including illustrations, bonus chapters, and anything that counts as a part of the Attack on Titan manga. Because of the amount of work that is and was required to do these series, I will not be covering the anime whatsoever. This is for my own sanity and time purposes, though maybe in the future I'll cover the anime in the same style I did the manga. I'll also be treating the manga as if this is my first read through, even though it's not. So in a sense, this series is a double-edged sword. It serves as an in-depth retrospective of Attack on Titan as well as an in-depth analysis and unveiling of its ideas, its strengths and weaknesses, and its character writing over the course of its run. If you're wondering when part 2 is, well, my answer is I don't know. It depends on how fast I finish each arc as well as how long my thoughts are on said arc, and usually I write a fuck ton on my thoughts. So if you found me off of this series, whether it's a certain part you like or the entire chronicles that I'll eventually create so it's all one video, I am not an Attack on Titan YouTuber. I'm an anime and manga YouTuber, and sometimes gaming. However, I want to get used to making longer form content, and I want a series on my channel that's lengthy and bingeable. If you're not interested in Attack on Titan but you found these videos, I upload and talk about a plethora of anime almost daily, and I have plenty of other videos you should check out. Finally, please like and subscribe. As I said, this took me days and days on end of work, and these videos are completely free. All I ask is that you take the time to like, comment, and share, as well as subscribe to me. Enough wasting your time. Let's get into it. The Chronicles of Attack on Titan, Part 1. Quick sidebar, my speech impediment is pretty bad, so if I mispronounce anything, blame the speech impediment, not me. Attack on Titan starts with the panel of Eren, Mikasa, and Armin staring into the destruction of the wall. That day, the human race remembered the terror of being dominated by them, and the shame of being held captive in a birdcage. As if the Titans are a symbol of imprisonment, they dominate the lives of humans daily. They strip them of their will to survive. A species that once had the freedom to choose what they could be no longer existed as long as these beasts roamed the earth. Episode 1. To you 2,000 years from now. We get a shot of Eren's eye as they gaze upon the Titan, a scenery he would never forget. In the next few pages, we see that the spirit of man is still alive despite the current circumstances, exclaiming that they should teach the Titans the power of the human race. We see a young Mikasa wake Eren from a dream where Eren is seen crying after some kind of nightmare. The year is 845. I really love AOT's early art style, very close to those popular 90s manga, a clear influence from stories like Dragon Ball and Yu Yu Hakusho. Eren tells Mikasa not to tell anybody that she saw him crying, to which she replied, "Crying for no reason? Why don't you have your dad examine you?" Eren tells her that he can't tell his father about this, possibly because he didn't want to seem like a bitch in front of his dad. Eren points out that he isn't crying because of Mikasa, to which he then smells the alcohol off of all of the soldiers. He finds it strange because the soldiers should be on guard because the Titans can strike at any time, and the safety of the civilians is in the hands of these men. A random background NPC tells Eren that everything is fine because the wall hasn't been attacked in 100 years, and even if they did get attacked, they're not getting through a 50-meter or 164-foot high fortress, even though Dr. Jaeger, Eren's father, believes that behaving as such is dangerous. The soldiers are rather content with a mediocre life, eat, sleep, shit, repeat until they die within the walls. There's no reason to look at what life could be because what they have is safe and easy to follow. There's no need for a risk factor. They can just live on solely because they were born to do so. But Eren poses an interesting question. Isn't that like being a caged animal? It's an interesting idea that Isayama establishes early on. This idea that being mediocre or average is the same as living as a dog in a cage, something typically done to punish a dog. I want to point out that Eren is called a crackpot for wanting to join the Survey Corps. Didn't know they were still trapping even in the Attack on Titan verse. Mikasa somewhat agrees with General Hans, telling Eren he should reconsider his position on joining the Survey Corps. Eren asks her if she's also making fun of the corps, more so is she implying that they shouldn't be taken seriously just as the soldiers did. But before their conversation can go on any further, the actual Survey Corps show up, and Eren wants to see the heroes in live action. There's an eerie feeling to this next panel. Notice how nobody's eyes are drawn in detail, almost as if the average person is soulless, just simply on page to fill in space. In the next page, look at the difference in how Eren and Mikasa's eyes are drawn and how the civilians' eyes are drawn. Eren and Mikasa's are full of hope and are bright and wide. The civilians, on the other hand, look as if they have bags under their eyes. Their eyes are smaller and give off a far more stressed feeling, as if seeing the injured soldiers had sucked the life out of them. It's revealed that most of the corpses were either mauled by the Titans or outright eaten by them. Over 100 soldiers set out to fight, and maybe 20 came back in one piece, and one piece is being pretty generous considering the fact that a look back at this page tells you that some of them are literally missing their entire mouth or eyes. A lady pleads with one of the soldiers about her son named Braun. The remaining soldiers bring her back something, some kind of bag. She anxiously opens it, and to her surprise, here lies her son's decapitated arm. The woman cries, holding her son's arm, asking if he was at least useful, pleading with the man for some kind of reassurance that there's any hope for her or anyone standing around them. Surely his death wasn't meaningless. It was one step closer for humanity, one step closer to beating the Titans. The man anxiously reassures her. Of course it was one step closer. It had to be. The survey came back and humanity actually made zero progress towards freeing themselves. Zero progress to a brighter future. They accomplished nothing. Due to the unknown nature of the Titans or the soldiers' incompetence, soldiers had just simply died to die. There was no reason. Banter starts to arise within the crowd where the civilians talk about how putting their life on the line was arguably a stupid decision, and that if they had accepted to be safe and sound, things wouldn't have happened the way they did. One guy even goes as far to say that soldiers are a waste of tax money and that their money is just used to fatten them up with snacks. Eren throws a rock at the back of the mustache guy's head, and before he's caught dead, Mikasa saves him and drags him out of the area. Mikasa literally ragdolls Eren, throwing him into the wall like she's rolling a bowling ball, and Eren justifiably asks her what the fuck her problem is. She asks him if his feelings about joining the Survey Corps and by extension obtaining freedom have changed after seeing such horrific scenery. Eren doesn't really give her an answer and simply asks her to help him pick up the firewood that was broken from her slinging Eren into the wall. Eren and Mikasa finally come home for the day. Eren's mother scolds them for being late, to which Eren replies, "Some stuff happened." Mikasa tells Eren's parents that he wants to join the Survey Corps, and just look at little Eren's face. Jesus Christ, he looks like he just saw his dog die. Eren's mother is against this idea, telling him that many people have died outside the wall. Despite this, Eren's mind doesn't move as he tells her he knows. His father gives a rather unamused look, but instead of telling him that it would be a bad idea, he asks him why Eren desires to go outside of the walls and into the world in the first place. Eren hates the idea of staying inside of the walls, just meandering and living his life out meaninglessly like the rest of the people who live in his town. If he does that, then all the efforts of the past soldiers, as well as their deaths, were simply carried out in vain. He is a man determined to find what his purpose is and knows that it has nothing to do with just surviving inside of the walls, almost waiting for death to come to him. Just like before, Dr. Jaeger says nothing and simply says he must leave. Eren's mom begs Jaeger to bargain with his son and talk some sense into him, to which his father simply says that there's no holding back an inquisitive mind. When Jaeger comes home, he'll show Eren his secret in the basement of their house, whatever that means. Eren is excited, but his mama tells him that she won't let him be foolish and join the Survey Corps. But the way Eren sees it is that the people simply living like caged birds are the real foolish ones. Mikasa anxiously looks on at the angry Eren before his mother tells Mikasa to keep him safe. Mikasa agrees as Eren and Mikasa leave. We cut to a young Armin who's in serious trouble as he's pressed up against the wall of an alleyway on the verge of getting his teeth knocked down his throat. Armin is often characterized due to the fact that his intelligence heavily outweighs his physical capabilities. So I love the fact that when the bully in this scenario tells him he needs to fight and hit him back, he tells him that he won't stoop to his level, and that being right about whatever it is he said was why the man wanted to resort to violence with him, which is the same as admitting defeat. I don't know, not anything major here, just something I like to see early on. Eren runs in to save Armin, and the brutes are excited to beat the shit out of him, but flee once they see that Mikasa is with him. Eren tries to brag about running the goons out of the area, but Armin quickly shuts him down, telling him it was because of Mikasa. Wow, Armin, what a great friend you are. There's another detail here that I love too. When Eren tries to help Armin to his feet, he tells him he's fine and that he can get up himself. On the surface, this holds no merit or meaning and is common in stories, especially anime and manga, but I think this is an early sign of an idea Armin tackles and wrestles with throughout the story of Attack on Titan. The desire to be strong and capable. Due to his inability to keep up with others physically, he's forced to always move with a chip on his shoulder. He's forced to prove himself more than others. He doesn't accept Eren's help here because he wants to show his friends that he's capable too. It's revealed that Armin had told the random guy that humans should eventually go to the outside world and got called a heretic, which is a bit extreme in my opinion. Armin and Eren continue their conversation, wondering why the others want to stay inside so bad. Why do they have no urgency to discover anything outside of their immediate life? Perhaps it's propaganda from the higher ups, to which Eren calls the king of their country a coward. Armin agrees, but wonders if there's anything deeper at play here. Eren says that it's their lives and they can do whatever they want with them, and Mikasa says absolutely not. God, I love you, Mikasa. Eren and Mikasa argue about her telling his parents earlier. She tells him there was no deal to keep anything a secret. Wow, fuck you, Mikasa, I kinda hate you. Eren tells Armin that his parents didn't take it well whatsoever, and Armin surprisingly agrees with his parents' stance, telling him it could be dangerous, which is something he most likely agrees with because of his lack of ability and not the fact that the role in and of itself is dangerous. He makes a remark that the walls could be breached at any moment, even if they've been impenetrable over the last 100 years. Coincidentally, there's a huge boom that shakes the earth around the characters as they fall. Thanks for cursing us, Armin. What a great friend you are. The three go to investigate the chaos, comparing it to an earthquake. The chapter ends with Eren's view of the Titan, who was capable of breaching a 50-meter wall, and the terror of being dominated and stepped on by something figuratively and literally larger than him. Perhaps he was still a caged bird, just as his peers were. Episode 2. That day. The chapter opens up with the general describing the relationship between the Titans and humanity. 107 years ago, the entire human race, aside from the ones living in the walls, were killed and devoured. He then jumps to retelling the events of episode 1. Eren, Mikasa, and Armin can do nothing but take a close look at the face that will inevitably destroy their home. I love how Isayama draws their faces here. Even though the art is kind of bad and you can tell it was from someone who was developing into drawing manga art weekly, it sort of adds to the horror elements in Attack on Titan, almost as if things become dysfunctional and incoherent as these characters experience fear. Armin makes a remark again about the sheer size of this Titan and how there's almost a 3-time difference in height between the average Titan at 50 feet tall versus the wall at about 164 feet tall. The Titan kicks a huge hole through the wall and Armin tells the two of his friends to run, disregarding himself in this equation. Another shot at himself and building block toward the idea I mentioned earlier. However, Eren had already made a run for it before he could even finish, heading straight for his mother's home, praying that she's safe. Mikasa chases after him and Armin is left alone to fend for himself, saying that it's far too late for any of them and that the Titans have already taken over. Eren's house is completely wrecked and his mother is crushed by the base of the house. Mikasa and Eren help each other to lift the pieces off of her body, trying their hardest to move quickly before the Titans notice them. Eren's mother reveals that she's been crippled and she begs Eren to take Mikasa to safety, telling him that he never listens to her. When his mother attempts to rely on Mikasa again, she too emotionally stays and desperately tries to save her life. Unfortunately, a Titan finds the three of them and they're left to make a decision. Save Eren's mother or sacrifice her to the wolves, or wolf in this case. A 50-foot one in this case. To our surprise, Hans actually steps in and tells the three of them that he'll pay his debt back to his family and save them, but this plan quickly falls apart, which is partially due to the fact that Hans is a coward. and fighting these beasts was something he couldn't fathom taking on in another 100 years. He saves Eren and Mikasa, their mother telling them to survive. There's a brief moment where she regrets these words, whispering to them, "Don't go," which has a double meaning since Isayama established that all the average and mediocre people of the world simply survive. So even though she's telling them to survive out of care for them as their children, she also regrets telling them because that's simply surviving and it isn't enough to satisfy one's life or keep them alive against the Titans. The Titan slowly eats Eren's mother in front of Mikasa and Eren as they watch on in pure shock. Eren angrily tries to fight Hans, telling him that he would have saved his mother had he not stepped in. Hans makes the remark that Eren couldn't save his mother because he wasn't strong enough. Hans couldn't save Eren's mother because he wasn't brave enough. Another props to the facial expressions here. He apologizes to Eren and Mikasa holds her head, muttering to herself that she's about to go through this again. Eren and Mikasa board a ship bringing the civilians to safety, and there's a brief argument about closing the gate to protect whoever they had boarded. Remember the train morality scenario? Well, there's a ton of those in AOT. If they do close the gate, whoever is left inside the raided city will likely die, but it will keep the survivors safe and sound. If they don't close the gate, Titans will flood through and kill people, but more people can board the ship and stay safe. Before they can concretely make a decision, a Titan breaks through Wall Maria and Eren cries in defeat. He asks if humans are truly this weak, truly as simple-minded and powerless as the Titans perceive them to be. All he could do was argue and bicker with his mother before she was gone forever. He makes a vow to end them all, even referring to them as animals. We cut back to 5 years later. The humans have paid the price, 100 years of peace for tragedy. The Titan that raided their home is dubbed as the Colossal Titan, and we're shown a diagram of how exactly the walls look. Due to the invasion, humanity was forced to retreat to Wall Rose, abandoning Wall Maria in the process. He tells the soldiers to dedicate their hearts to defending the walls with their life, and proceeds to announce the 10 participants with the highest scores in the military training. Mikasa Ackerman graduates head of the class. Second is Reiner Braun. Third is Berthold Hoover. Fourth is Annie Learhart. Fifth is Eren Yeager. Sixth is Jane Kirsting. 7 is Marco Bott. 8 is Connie Springer. And 9th is Sasha Blouse. And 10th is Krista Lenz. Apologies if I butchered anybody's names. The chapter ends with Eren talking about how he had finally made it to the Survey Corps. Now it's time for the humans to devour the Titans. We also get a lore dump on why towns simply reside right outside of the walls for the Titans to breach through. Essentially, humans are used as bait for the Titans, as there's no possible way humans could protect a wall that's further from their town, which by extension would have to be larger and wider to protect them. Isayama states that there was a movement to completely close off all gates to the outside world, therefore eliminating the possibility of more Titans invading their space, but this quickly fell through as reformists argued that abandoning the gates to the outside world is tantamount to abandoning the will of the human race to reclaim its dominion. We're left with this for now, as Isayama tells us we'll learn more about the construction of the wall and the events surrounding it at a later time. Episode 3. Night of the Disbanding Ceremony. The chapter starts off with a description of each of the branches or the sections/jobs of the military. The garrison reinforced the walls, thereby protecting all of the towns. The Survey Corps are prepared to sacrifice their lives outside the walls by defying the Titans in their own domain. And the Military Police Brigade exercises control over the king's subjects, maintaining order. It's stated that the only people allowed to join the Military Brigade are the 10 highest scoring recruits from this round of testing. It'll soon be revealed which choice they make, but for right now, the 104th Training Corps is disbanded. We cut to the new recruits having dinner. This is the first characterization and establishment of Jean's character, as well as the main cast of AOT in general. Jean says that there's pretty much no other reason to pass the test and crack the top 10 outside of joining the Military Police Brigade. Marco adorably agrees, saying that it's an honor to work near the king. Jean, albeit drunkenly, calls bullshit on Marco, telling him that he can't wait to get inside of the interior to escape this shitty, suffocating town. A safer and more comfortable life awaits them deeper into the walls. I like the parallel storytelling here. I established earlier that there's a clear discrepancy between the free and the ones who are trapped. Jean attempts to play both sides here. He wants to be free from the horror of the Titans, but wants to do it in a way where the civilians who resided within Wall Maria did. Marco disagrees and shames names Jean before he cuts him off, calling him a prized pupil. Jean asks the others what their opinion on the matter is, once again insulting the current living circumstances of the soldiers and civilians. After an awkward silence, the others agree with him. Jean turns to Annie and Berthold to ask them the same question about living within and joining the MPS, to which Berthold and Annie agree, but Annie specifies that she wants to be nothing like Jean. Jean laughs it off and Eren stands up in anger, telling Jean about his home that was destroyed, which at the time was also considered the interior and comfortable. Eren tells Jean that he has no reason to join the MPS and live comfortably because the interior of his brain is already soft enough, or in other news, Jean is a fucking idiot. Reiner laughs so hard that he spits liquid out of his nostrils all over Armin. Poor Armin. Mikasa grabs Eren's arm, telling him not to engage any further. Jean asks Eren if he's trying to call him stupid. Well, Jean, what do you think having a soft and smooth brain means? He states that he isn't one and that he's simply looking at reality more than anybody else present. 4 years ago, 20% of what's left of the human population was sent to recover stolen territory from the Titans. However, most of them were eaten or killed in the process. He asked Eren how many more humans were needed to succeed. How many more would have had to die before they could have claimed their land back? For every Titan defeated, about 30 humans died, and that there are way more Titans than 1/3 of the human race. In conclusion, humans stand no chance against the Titans, so there's no logical reason to even fight them. Jean says Eren killed the mood, which I'd argue against since his social skills are awful, but whatever. Eren's character shines here, asking Jean if it's just better to give up and surrender than to fight on for humanity and its mission. In the first place, it was a given that they would lose to the Titans from a material position. I assume he means a physical one here, but the terms are synonymous in this context. One of the reasons they had lost to the Titans 4 years ago was because they were ignorant and had almost zero knowledge on the Titans, but with new information, the future surely looks brighter than it did before. Eren restates his dream to leave the walls and see the outside world after exterminating the Titans. Jean rebuttals, calling Eren a smooth soft brain because nobody in the room agrees with him. Eren tells Jean to go crawl to the military brigade because it would be bad morale to have someone as cowardly as him on the front line, and Jean tells him to gladly go get obliterated by the Titans. The two stand off for a bit before throwing a punch at each other at the same time. Jean mocks Eren, telling him that he's too weak to face the Titans because he's clashing with a human. It's stated here that Eren's hand-to-hand combat skill was the highest out of any soldier, which isn't believable whatsoever considering that in the next page, Mikasa easily picks him up and disarms him, but there's a bit of nuance here. Yes, Eren wouldn't attack Mikasa, but surely Eren would have ranked higher if he was by far and away the best hand-to-hand fighter out of this batch of characters. Not to mention that Reiner goes back on this statement, saying he was most likely wrong in the first place and that he was only second to Mikasa, which also keep in mind Reiner's pretty drunk here, but whatever. Mikasa easily picks up Eren, disarming him like a mother does a child. Franz tells Jean to calm down or else the instructor will come through and scold them. Jean argues for a bit before we cut to Mikasa throwing Eren on the ground and critiquing him for his impulsiveness when he's angry. Eren doesn't say anything and asks Mikasa which branch she'll join. She replies with the Survey Corps, and it's pretty much confirmed that Eren would never be number 1 in the class considering the fact that the instructors were saying Mikasa was the most talented person to ever participate in the training corps. Mikasa pretty much just says she'll go wherever Eren goes. She interestingly states she died once before and won't go through it again, not forgetting whoever she's indebted to. As she hugs her scarf, she says that more than anything, Mikasa doesn't want to lose any more family. Armin finally arrives, telling the two that the party had broken up and that they should return to their dorms. Eren asks Armin who he's going to join. Of course, it's the Survey Corps, and Eren is shocked at his response. Armin continues to acknowledge his weakness. He's weaker than the average person, passing the combat exam by some kind of miracle. Eren tries to reason with Armin, mentioning that the instructor told him that he should become some kind of technician due to being academically at the top of their class, but Armin says it wouldn't matter if he dies anyways. There's an awkward silence before the trio are alerted, possibly by some kind of commotion nearby. Hans is seen talking to a few soldiers as the three stand to salute him. Hans tells them not to be so formal, and I want to point out that the manga seemingly uses 4 years and 5 years confusingly here. I don't think it was a mistake on Isayama's side and is instead a small detail to establish how technologically behind society is at this point due to the lack of resources they have access to. Hans apologizes to Eren for not saving his mother years ago. He talks about how his family had a serious disease and that Dr. Jaeger had appeared with the antibody before his whole family was cured. He wanted to repay the debt to the Jaegers, and it feels horrible that he couldn't. Eren is annoyed and complains about having to hear the same story again. Rightfully so. Fuck Hans. Hans questions Eren about the disappearance of his father, asking him if there was anything he could remember before his strange absence. Eren's eyes widen and his head throbs before he falls to the ground. Mikasa implies that this is weirdly a common occurrence, as Eren feels like his head is going to split into two anytime his dad is mentioned. He's simply a blur in his mind now. We get a flashback as Dr. Jaeger attempts to inject something inside of Eren. Pause. Eren wakes up as Armin tells him he collapsed right after the episode with Hans, and that he was sobbing and crying in his sleep. Eren can't remember what he dreamt of and holds his head in agony. We cut to an Eren talking about how much livelier the town is and nothing has happened and peace has fallen upon humanity once more. The walls are much stronger, and they even question if the colossal titan has given up on trying to destroy them. Eren says marriage has made it too soft, arguably subbing his parents in this statement. I want to point out another detail in that Eren is never really as embarrassed or cartoonish as his other shonen brethren. In this scene when he mistakenly says the two are married, instead of giving a face of embarrassment or shame, he looks angry here, which is scary to think about. We cut to a conversation between Thomas, Connie, and Eren. Thomas tells Eren that Connie will be joining the Survey Corps instead of the MP Brigade, and that Eren's speech that night changed his mind. Connie disagrees, telling him that it was actually Jean who swayed him instead by just existing, but is quickly read like a book as he wouldn't join the Survey Corps if Jean was there too. Sasha shows up on the scene with food that she stole from the officers of private stock. Fat bitch. Just look at her drooling at the thought of a basic meat sandwich. Eren wants to reclaim territory for the ideas of freedom and glory, and she's sitting here thinking about how much more food they'll be able to get once the territory frees up. God, I love you, Sasha. The group continues to converse, this guy saying, "I'll eat that meat too." Alright dude, whatever you like, I guess. Eren walks away from the group, which is something I'd do too if this random dude was talking about smacking on meat. He reminisces on the past and how regaining territory and winning is more likely now that the morale is higher. As he continues to walk the walls, his worst nightmare happens. The colossal titan suspiciously appears out of nowhere, and the group is sent back by the force and heat of its appearance. Eren yells to switch to vertical maneuvering, which will be explained later, and Samuel, the guy who said he wants to smack on meat, almost falls to his death, but surprisingly Sasha, the fat bitch who was daydreaming about sandwiches, saves him at the last second. The titans infiltrate the wall again, and Eren gets flashbacks to his past, that forsaken day 5 years ago. The chapter ends with the cast preparing to defend against the colossal titan once again, and a stare down between it and our protagonist Eren Jaeger. Now I did mention that vertical maneuvering would be explained, and Isayama gives us a diagram of how the character's equipment works here. Essentially, by switching between modes by shifting their weight, it allows them to grapple and soar through the skies as if they were actually flying. I'll leave the diagram here for you guys to look at for a few seconds, but I think everyone knows how the equipment works. Still, if you don't, here it is. Episode 4. First battle. I really love the paneling here in the beginning of this chapter. Isayama puts a lot of emphasis on the colossal titan's size compared to the wall and the average human with units of measurement, but it's made clear here with how Eren is comparatively small to just its arm. We also get another diagram to show how exactly the vertical maneuvering devices work with gas and air pressure. Pretty neat stuff. Once again, I'll leave this up for anyone who's curious. Eren continues to wrestle with the colossal titan, being sent back and forth using the vertical maneuvering device to dodge around its massive size and frame. He grapples around to run up the titan's arm and potentially ends the battle himself, but a simple gaze makes him freeze in fear, contemplating what just occurred. Eren makes the observation that unlike the other titans, the colossal titan specifically aimed for the weakness of the wall and the device, suspicious of its high intelligence. Eren takes advantage of this though, attempting to kill the titan himself. Before Eren can land the killing blow on the colossal titan, it emits its sting, distracting Eren before he mysteriously disappears out of thin air just like 5 years ago. The boys are told to get in formation and civilians start to evacuate their homes. It's stated that the Survey Corps is gone on a mission outside of the walls. All that's left is the garrison to defend humanity's home. Eren nervously approaches Armin, asking him if he's alright, before Armin anxiously replies back, telling him that he's more than okay. There's an 8-meter hole in the wall now. If humanity fails to plug that hole, it's a high possibility that humanity as we know it could end right now. The humans get in formation to defend against the Titans, and Mikasa tells Eren to find her if things get hairy. Weird way to describe being in danger, but alright Mikasa. Eren makes a point that he and Mikasa are on opposite squads, but Mikasa once again tells him that she'll protect him, even if they have to break formation to do so. Eren questions Mikasa being adamant about this before she's put in the rear guard to protect the civilians. Mikasa attempts to argue once again, but Eren talks some sense into her, telling her that it's her rules or humanity at stake here. She unwillingly agrees and takes her position, telling Eren to not die on her. We get a flashback here and some exposition on the Titans, clearly stating that they're incapable of communicating and conversing with humans, so coming to a mutual understanding verbally is impossible. Titans have no sexual or reproductive organs and are mostly male. Their bodies have extremely high temperatures and they have zero interest in any other species but humans. Their sole behavior is eating human beings, but considering the fact that they existed in a time before humans were alive, they deduct that they don't need to eat to survive and instead do it out of pleasure or hedonism. The main reason the humans consistently lose to the Titans likely has nothing to do with a lack of strength on humanity's part, but instead the Titans' uncanny ability to survive. Even if a Titan's head is blown off, it's stated to regenerate in 1 to 2 minutes. Marco asks if the Titans are invulnerable, to which he replies no, and that the nape of their neck is a weak spot to be targeted when in combat with them. The vertical maneuvering device is the most efficacious way of dealing with them, and we get another explanation of how they're to be used. Each hand uses the grip of the device to operate the system. The firing mechanism at both sides of the waist launches an anchor using the person in question's weight to do so. A replaceable and flexible blade is used to cut through large chunks of meat. If a Titan is cut from the nape of its neck, it dies immediately and renders its regenerative abilities useless. Armin finally remarks about how they can be useful here, but this is most likely a double entendre, another case of self-hatred on Armin's self. We cut back to the present where Eren tells Armin that if they do well in this battle, it's very likely they'll be promoted up the ladder quicker than they would have if this had not happened. Thomas and Eren make a bet on who will kill more Titans as the group rages on to its first battle. However, the Titans have already thought a few steps ahead, which is ironic since they tend to characterize the creatures as almost stupid or outright unintelligent. It shows you the nuance of war. A Titan attacks the group. Everybody dodges except for Thomas, who finds himself in the mouth of a Titan, and runs after the Titan, trying to split from the group before another Titan nearly kills Eren in the process. Unfortunately for our beloved protagonist, his entire lower leg is ripped off as the soldiers attempt to calm down and recoup against the next Titan. Well, that doesn't go well because they pretty much all die immediately, and it's actually Armin's cowardice that saves his life here. We cut to a flashback of Armin and Eren having a conversation about a book that Armin's grandfather gifted to him. In the book, it talks about the outside world and how the sea covers it. The two fool around, talking about how the sea is mostly salt water, which, now that I think about it myself, is a pretty stupid and silly idea. Someday the two want to explore the outside world together and what truly lies within it, which causes Eren to still stand to fight despite missing part of his leg. Yeah, that's my fucking MC. Before Armin is devoured by a Titan, Eren jumps into its mouth at the last second, pulling him out and sacrificing himself for his friend. Eren reiterates that he won't die here, even if he's between the fangs of his enemy, as the chapter ends with Mikasa looking on at the destruction caused by the Titans on her end. This was a shorter chapter and there's way less dialogue here than in others, but I do want to point out to the cute illustration of Isayama's team working on the story. Apparently they only listen to TBS radio, and there's actually a pretty great interview at the end where Isayama states that he spends his free time drooling and surfing the internet. This is a pretty good interview and I'll leave these answers up for you guys to browse through. Feel free to pause the video and give this one a good read. It's pretty damn good. Episode 5, A Dull Glow in the Midst of Despair. Alright, so the first volume of Attack on Titan is covered. I think there were some pretty great ideas established early on, and Isayama definitely knows how to build a cast. Things only get better, so let's hop back into the story. The chapter opens up with humanity continuing their fight against the Titans. Cannonballs blow off the heads of their enemies, but due to their nature, this has almost zero effect. The advanced team has been destroyed and we get multiple illustrations of soldiers with only half their body intact to really showcase how fucking horrible the situation is. Connie snaps Armin out of the unconsciousness as he remembers everything that happened in chapter 4. He calls himself a useless bastard and even goes as far as telling himself to die on his knees. Ymir makes the observation that pretty much everyone who has died at this point except for Armin, who likely was mistaken for a corpse of some kind. Ymir and Connie get into a fight before Krista breaks it up, and Ymir tells her to marry her after this is said and done. Connie attempts to help Armin up, but he refuses, instead going to the rear guard where Mikasa is currently stationed to support. As Armin is traveling, he thinks about how he had mistaken the world for becoming hell because it always was. The strong eat the weak, and despite having nuance, it's such a simple idea that it obliges him. Despite this hopelessness in this world, his friends still fought back and still tried to be as strong as possible. He views his friendship almost as if it were a transaction. Armin is to be saved by the strong because it's the duty of such of a group to do so. This paradigm is what caused Eren's death, and Armin can't help but blame him for it. We cut to Armin finding Hannah and Franz, the couple Eren joked around with prior to the attack, and we see that Franz got half of his body torn off. She tries to kiss him to bring him back to life as Armin cries in disgust, telling her it's no use anymore. We cut to the civilians, who are obviously restless at the current situation. They've taken matters into their own hands to protect themselves from the Titans. The humans frantically scatter amongst themselves as the elite troops struggle to catch up, except for Mikasa, who easily tracks down and kills said Titan. I don't want to say anything for sure, but I'm almost certain this is the same guy who gets a rock thrown at him by Eren in chapter 1, which would make sense because said man in chapter 1 was complaining about the economy and the food being provided to soldiers unjustifiably. Anyways, Mikasa gets into an argument with the dude due to his antics earlier. She tells him that she's protecting them from danger, but the man says that it's the duty of the soldiers to die for them anyways, so what's the issue? Mikasa easily debunks his claim. If it's natural for people to die for one another, then surely he'd understand that sacrificing his life for others would be beneficial in this hypothetical, which isn't really a hypothetical, but for the purpose of their argument, we're going to address it as such. The man once again tries to flex his political power, but Mikasa simply refers to him as a corpse that gained the ability to speak with her. Cold as fuck, Mikasa. The man backs the carrier up and the civilians continue to run to safety. A little girl is inspired and salutes Mikasa before she returns to the rooftops to discuss with her instructor, who reflects on the fact that Mikasa is a natural. We cut to a memory of Mikasa's 1 year before the colossal Titan's initial attack. Here we see that Mikasa used to live with both of her parents. Mikasa wears some kind of painful but familial brand or birthmark that's passed down from generation to generation, and one day she too will give that brand to her child and the child to their children. She asks her parents how babies are born, to which her father tells her to ask Dr. Jaeger as he'll be here soon. Eren and his father arrive at her home, where his dad basically calls him a loser because he's unwilling to make friends. The Ackermen don't answer the door, and to the two's surprise, both are dead on the floor. As the chapter ends with the murder of Mikasa's parents and the disappearance of the strongest soldier on the battlefield, we get a short illustration of how much territory was left to humans. Even though it's stated not to be an accurate representation of how much land is actually left to the species, at least we're given an idea as to what's left. It's also stated that despite the current situation, humans have been blessed with access to water, gas, and minerals. Episode 6, The World That the Girl Saw. The chapter opens up with Dr. Jaeger informing Eren that he's going to call the military police. He tells Eren to stay put for now until the police show up, to which Eren looks disturbed or quite frankly possessed. We learn that Mikasa was captured by a duo of bounty hunters. One of the bounty hunters makes a remark about how beautiful Mikasa is, but he says he's not interested in that kind of stuff. I know somebody who is though. We learn that Mikasa is the last descendant of the Ackerman family, a family who escaped the walls of Asia. Because of this, she's clearly valuable on the Attack on Titan's black market, or whoever would buy her, since there's a lack of diversity between what's left of society. They broke into the Ackerman household to capture and sell each one of them, but Mikasa's mother fought back and things didn't necessarily end well for either side. Mikasa's parents ended up dead, and the criminals lost out on the money they could have gotten from a pure-blooded Ackerman on the market. Mikasa questions her decision to stay with her family, a somber and short monologue about how the world is far too cold without the two of them at her side. To the criminal's surprise, Eren actually walks in telling him that he's a lost child in the woods. The criminals tell him to be careful before it's revealed that it was a trick, and Eren cuts open one of the criminal's throats. Eren hides and comes back out with some kind of weapon you see in Sakamoto days, stabbing the criminal in the shoulder before pouncing on him with the same knife from before. Eren cries as he calls them animals and states that what's happening to them now is natural, which is ironic considering the fact that he mauls them like the same creatures he's accusing them of being. Eren ends up murdering both of them them before untying Mikasa, introducing himself in the process. But before Eren could speak any further, the criminal's acquaintance shows himself and quickly attacks Eren, which is revealed to be the two criminals' son? Whatever. Eren tells Mikasa to fight and earn the right to live. Fight and help both of them survive. Mikasa anxiously picks up the knife and stares down the man choking Eren out. She ponders on it before deciding that she can't, but a vision bequeaths her shortly after. A look into nature, life with her parents. Her father carried a dead animal. That's right. This world and everything in it is cruel. Mikasa being alive at this point was some kind of miracle, and that in of itself gave her the courage to fight on. She ends the man's life in one strike to the heart, and the soldiers are frightened at the idea of two children killing three grown men by themselves. Dr. Jaeger shuts down Eren, simply telling him that he was lucky he survived in the first place. Mikasa tells Dr. Jaeger that she has nowhere to go and nowhere to call home, and that all she can feel is the cold chill of her parents' absence. Eren covers her in a scarf, a symbol of their friendship, warms her, and the two offer their home to her after all she's been through. She cries as she agrees to come home with them, and we cut back to the current timeline where she's shown battling a Titan. I love Mikasa and Eren's dynamic very early on. Mikasa's freedom comes from crushing her enemies in defeat, so that she may never feel trapped as a victim again, while Eren's freedom comes from wanting more for his life than what he's been told or shown, also never feeling trapped as a victim again. The way they also complement Armin in this context is magnificent. All three are victims of their external world, and they project their internal ideals upon the cruelty of what they see every day. Mikasa kills another Titan and calls Eren her home. If he's around, then she can accomplish anything and everything. The chapter ends with some diagrams on the wall mounted artillery that the soldiers use to kill Titans that I'll leave up for you guys here. Episode 7, Small Blade. The chapter starts off with a group of soldiers being surrounded by Titans, the future looking dim. A soldier pulls out a gun and we're left with the assumption he's going to use it to try and defend himself. However, he immediately kills himself before we pan to Mikasa grappling through the city. Mikasa's confused since things should be moving along relatively well. However, she catches sight of the Titans scaling the buildings. It seems as though a group of soldiers gave up and trapped themselves inside of the HQ to keep themselves safe or maybe even die a less painful death. Connie suggests that the remaining soldiers risk their lives to kill the remaining Titans. Sasha says that if they all work together, then she's sure they'll make it. I love you so much, Sasha. She asks Armin for some moral support to boost morale, but he's pretty much out of the game at this point. Things look hopeless amongst the group until Mikasa shows up searching for Eren's squad. Armin can't even look her in the eyes to tell her what had happened to Eren and how he had sacrificed himself for Armin. Mikasa asks Armin where Eren is, but all he can do is give her a look of shame as tears fall down his face. The group confirms that Thomas Wagner, Noctius, Miles Zaramuski, Mina Carolina, and Eren Jaeger have all died brave deaths in the battle against the Titans. Mikasa tells Armin to calm down as this is no time to be getting sentimental. Mikasa offers to take out all of the Titans so that they can all obtain enough gas to scale the wall to safety. Mikasa is further characterized here, insulting the group for not being winners and nearly accepting defeat, telling them to simply watch on as she does the job herself. There's a callback to the moment Eren saves her life, and it's nothing short of beautiful storytelling. Despite Mikasa's negative remarks, her speech ends up rallying the troops as they push on to eliminate the remaining enemies. As Mikasa goes on to kill the Titans, Armin notices that she's burning through the fuel for her device, and the likelihood of them reaching the finish line before she runs out is slim. Despite her demeanor, it's clear that Eren's death had gotten to her mentally. Mikasa runs out and she falls onto the rooftop of a small fruit shop. Does she have to experience the coldness of the world yet again? Does she have to lose another family just like before? She ponders on how cruel the world is, and yet its beauty shines brighter than ever. She calls back to the moment Eren gave her his scarf. She accepts defeat. Looking down at her blade, a flashback of her first kill plagues her mind. She gets a vision of the words she spoke to her colleagues a few moments ago. Fight on, fight for your life. Earn your survival. You did not come this far just to give up and die. She tells herself that if she dies now, she won't even be able to remember Eren. Before she charges into battle, to her surprise, a Titan saves her life from out of nowhere. The Titan ends up ripping its brethren to shreds as Mikasa looks on in confusion and fear. The chapter ends with a rejected cover proposal, which I think could have been pretty damn cool. Just a bad drawing of Mikasa raising her sword out of courage. Would have been pretty sweet. Episode 8. Roar. The chapter starts off with Mikasa becoming uplifted by the Titan who saved her life, referring to it as the human race's fury incarnate. The Titan roars as Armin quickly saves Mikasa, grappling the two out of the area. Armin is worried for Mikasa's well-being, but she quickly turns him down, telling him she's fine. The soldiers watch on as the Special Titan takes a stance similar to that of a boxer and rocks one of the Titans with a clean jab, sending its head flying into a house before its brains explode all over the town. Connie, Mikasa, and Armin suspiciously note that the Special Titan knows the weak spots of the Titans, and that its intelligence is extremely high. There's a moment where Armin switches his gear with Mikasa, perhaps atoning for the fact that he was too weak to save Eren. Mikasa also shines here as she realizes her anger got the best of her, and because of it she risked everyone's lives in the process. Armin attempts to commit suicide, but Mikasa refuses, throwing his blade away and telling him she won't let him die. Connie and Mikasa come up with a strategy to save Armin, and Armin subconsciously disagrees, still afraid of his own weakness. Despite this, Armin offers some kind of plan to the two before we cut to Jean, who ends up watching his comrades die in front of him. He takes advantage of this, charging the HQ for supplies while his comrades get ripped apart by distracting the Titans. The dynamic of cowardry between Armin and Jean is done really well here too. While Armin is someone who's a coward due to his lack of ability and the death of Eren, Jean is a coward who prefers not to fight and is much more sleazy in his actions in order to get what he wants. He ends up using his comrade's death as a distraction to survive in this scenario. Even if it would have been stupid to attempt to save them, not even trying here pretty much tells you the kind of man Jean is. His character continues to shine in the next few pages as he lashes out on the supply group, blaming the high amount of deaths on them. Despite the supply squad not being able to do anything physically, he makes the claim that doing something about it is their job, but isn't this ironic? Jean doesn't even want to do his job, and this is made clear in his initial appearance, and also does nothing about the group dying in front of him. This is a clear projection of his internal disappointment within himself. The Titans break through and the soldiers announce that Mikasa has died. Hopelessness seeps through and consumes Jean. What he was seeing was simply a vision. It was a lens over reality, and now he must pay the price with his life against the unbeatable species known as the Titans. That is, until the Special Titan from earlier actually saves them, attacking another beast and drawing attention away from Jean and his group. Mikasa, Armin, and Connie show up, which debunks Mikasa's death announced by the others, and relief washes over the cowardly man known as Jean. Connie mentions that the Titan has no interest in humans, and with the use of its strength, an escape is very likely. The chapter ends with Mikasa agreeing with Connie and telling the group that its rampage is the best chance of survival for them. We actually get a diagram of each of the Titans here that I'll leave up for a few seconds if you're interested. Episode 9, The Beating of a Heart Can Be Heard. The chapter starts off with the rampaging Titan continuing to tear through its brethren. Jean ends up finding some supplies and hands the soldiers buckshots, which are just shotguns created for hunting larger and stronger creatures like bears. The group is pretty skeptical as the idea of a shotgun doing damage to a Titan is laughable, but I guess having some weapons is better than having none. It's also stated that with these guns they should be able to at least decapitate or disarm a Titan temporarily. The plan is simple. Lower a group of soldiers as bait for the Titans until they surround the humans, blow their heads off with the shotguns, and then gamble on the remaining soldiers attacking all at once, killing the Titans through their weak spots before they regenerate. The team agree in unison and bet on Armin's plan. Mikasa tells Armin to have faith in himself and that his ability to lead others has saved both Eren and Mikasa's lives more times than not. Armin questions this and Mikasa lets him know that they'll speak on it later. With no maneuvering gear, killing the Titans would normally be tough, but because this is the smaller class of Titans, hitting their weak spots should be relatively easy. Reiner actually proposes the idea that they should shove their weapons up the Titan's asshole, which apparently is another weak spot for the species. So I guess you can kill a Titan by cutting the back of its neck open or by touching its G-spot. The plan unfolds and everybody gets a good shot on the Titans, and the 7 most athletic soldiers present charge in to finish the Titans. Mikasa successfully kills her assigned Titan, but Connie and Sasha miss their attacks by a few inches and end up needing backup. Sasha adorably apologizes to the Titan for stabbing him. "I love you so much, Sasha. You are so precious to me." Mikasa ends up saving her life as Sasha thanks her on her knees afterwards. The plan succeeds, but before the soldiers leave, they make another observation of the new Titan. For an odd reason, despite this never being the case before, the Titans actually end up cannibalizing its brethren in an attempt to defend itself. The group banter amongst themselves and question whether or not they can really trust the Titan as an ally. Reiner suggests that they actually save the allied Titan in order to understand what its purpose is. This plan quickly falls apart as as the Titan makes it clear it needs no help and kills 2 more of its brethren even with no arms. The Titan continues to rampage, only using its mouth before it tires itself out and falls to the ground. The group plans on leaving before the Titan actually disappears. In the midst of the smoke, Mikasa looks on. To everyone's surprise, what's left of the Titan is actually Eren himself. Mikasa runs over, unable to believe what she had just witnessed. She hugs Eren and cries out in relief, before Armin rushes over, confused since he literally watched Eren lose his limbs and die. The chapter ends with a deafening silence from the soldiers as they question how Eren was able to cause this much destruction through such a monstrous vessel. We also get another really cool but badly drawn illustration at the end. Okay, so a bit of a side story here to prepare for the last chapters of this first arc. We get another explanation of how the Titans appeared and drove humanity into the danger of extinction, and how the remaining humans built 3 walls to keep themselves safe from the Titans. 100 years of peace came from this before the fateful day 5 years ago. Now the Survey Corps attempts to blaze its own path, destroying the Titans and protecting what's left of the human race. This is actually the first time we see or hear of both Erwin and Levi, and it's stated that Levi is as strong as an entire brigade of soldiers as well as the strongest soldier alive. We're also introduced to Hanj in this side story, which is pretty nice. Outside of this, I'll be completely honest, not much happens in this side story. Levi kills a Titan and that's about it. Something important to take away from this though is the fact that the Survey Corps are currently planning a mission to take back Shinganshina district, the district where Eren and Co lived prior to the arrival of the colossal Titan. Episode 10, Where's the Left Arm? Alright, and we're back to the main story. The chapter starts off with Eren's point of view from the time he got eaten to the time he became a Titan. For the purpose of this video and my own sanity, I'm going to refer to his Titan as the Attack Titan from now on, even though it hasn't been dubbed as such yet. Now that we know it's Eren, I'm just going to run with the ball that was already given to me. So Eren gets eaten by the Titan and sits in his digestive system, basically just waiting his turn to die. At this moment, Eren realizes that his training over the past 5 years was useless, and humanity's chances to survive this round are close to 0. Eren cries as he watches a young girl dissolve into bones and flesh, only being able to cry and look at his missing left arm, hence the name of the chapter. Eren vows not to give up, and that's when he transforms into the Attack Titan. He looks on in disgust as he destroys his enemies one by one, brutally murdering each individual Titan in the area. We cut back to the current events where Eren is creepily fantasizing over killing every Titan in his path before he snaps back to reality off of Armin's voice. The trio of Eren, Mikasa, and Armin are surrounded by the soldiers, and another deafening silence falls on the world. Eren is pretty clueless and has 0 idea what happened or how he ended up where he was in the first place. The captain justifiably establishes the fact that Eren's transformation into the Attack Titan is treason against the human race, and poses a question towards Eren. Are you man or beast? If the question is answered wrong, a cannon will be fired toward Eren and he'll die on the spot. This question is interesting based on Eren's past. If you remember correctly, Eren calls the criminals who kidnapped Mikasa animals and beasts that simply met their fate. And I did mention that this was subtle storytelling and foreshadowing of what's to come in the future. Eren is in the same position here. He adapts the traits of his enemies and exterminates them in an inhumane way out of rage. There's also a ton of nuance in his answer to the question, as he simply states that he doesn't understand it. This is because Eren doesn't really view the world like the rest of the cast in Attack on Titan, and does not view the world as beast versus man. To his comrades, the Titans are beasts that must be destroyed to protect the human race. Eren's view is much more nuanced. The Titans, just like the criminals, are enemies that happen to be beasts. They simply could have been aliens or even humans, and he would still crush them because they're in the way of his goals and dreams. Mikasa steps in, and anyone who gets involved will immediately die to her blade. Someone states that Mikasa is as valuable as 100 soldiers, and that killing her in the process would be meaningless. Armin begs and pleads with Mikasa to try and talk it out with them, but she doesn't budge. Eren ponders on the situation for a second before answering that he's human, and he means no harm, but due to a lack of proof, the 3 are about to die on the spot. Eren gets another vision of his father, and it's revealed that the injection he gave Eren earlier was actually after the events in Shinganshina 5 years ago, and whatever Dr. Jaeger injected into Eren ended up damaging his memory, which is why he passes out every time someone mentions the idea of his father to him. Dr. Jaeger tells Eren that he must reclaim Wall Maria and find the truth that resides in the basement, and also implies that the injection will give him the power to reclaim his home and protect the ones he loves most. He also mentions that their memories will teach you how to use this power, but we're pretty unaware of who they are at this moment. The cannon is fired at Eren and his friends, and the chapter ends with his transformation back into a Titan, ultimately saving the three's lives. Episode 11, Response. The chapter opens up with Hans talking about Eren, Mikasa, and Armin and how they're essentially the future of the Survey Corps and humanity itself. Connie tells Krista the events of what just took place, and Jean tells Ymir and Krista that what took place is to be kept secret from the public until further notice. Jean mentions that no matter what, the truth will come to light, even if it's after humanity's extinction. A soldier attempts to commit suicide but is stopped, and Sasha fakes an injury to show that she's not okay, and the fact that she's probably hungry. I love you so much, Sasha. The cannon shot from earlier is heard, and Reiner and Annie rush to see what's going on. Here they get a view of Eren's transformation and him saving Armin and Mikasa's life. Mikasa and Armin have no clue what just happened or what's going on, but they do understand that Eren protected them. Eren tells the two that they have to hurry and escape before the Titan's body evaporates and the soldiers can once again see where they are. Eren angrily questions his father's actions, considering the fact that the key to beating the Titans may reside within the basement, and that hiding it was a selfish and foolish move, not to mention the fact that he outright abandoned his family for 5 years. Fucking bastard. Eren states that he's going to reclaim Wall Maria himself and find the truth after transforming into a Titan once more. It's established here that transforming into a Titan is actually something that taxes Eren's body. Of course, Eren doesn't care because he's Eren, but I thought it was worth pointing out. Mikasa and Eren argue over her coming alongside with Eren and becoming a heretic. Armin questions whether or not he even has the right to say he wants to come along, since he would likely serve the two no purpose and would just slow them down. Armin considers the idea that this is probably their last moments together regardless of which path they take. Before Armin can drown in any more self-deprecation, Eren considers another possibility, which is left up to Armin. I just want to point out that Armin, the most intelligent character in the story, states that it'll take 20 seconds to reload the cannon, and in those entire 20 seconds, Eren is able to propose 2 scenarios in which the 3 can survive. 20 seconds, pretty insane if you ask me. Eren makes a proposition. If Armin can convince the garrison that he's not a threat and that he's capable of fighting alongside them, he'll happily stay, but if Armin can't, he'll make a run for it. Armin questions Eren, asking him why such an important decision is in the palm of his hands. Eren tells him that he always makes the right decisions and that he's just relying on his intuition as always. Eren also gives an example, telling Armin that without his help, both him and Mikasa would have died, proving that Armin is useful, even if he isn't physically capable like everybody else. Armin finally grows some balls and agrees with convincing the garrison of Eren's value. Armin makes a bargain with the general, and after failing, he simply brings up the fact that Eren couldn't be a threat since the Titans were attempting to eat and kill him, and if he was an enemy to humanity, then he would have already attempted to kill everybody in the area. However, the two sides can't reach an agreement and they plan to fire once more. Armin stands his ground, saying that he made a promise long ago to dedicate himself to the human race. If he dies here, then at least it will be out of honor and he'll have no regrets. But he once again offers to explain Eren's strategic value to them in his dying moments. The captain is about to fire and kill the 3 before Commander Pixis steps in and takes control of the situation, as the chapter ends with the man hearing the children out before they punish them. Episode 12, Icon. The chapter opens up with a description of the Survey Corps strategy. Here we see that Trost was the next district to be attacked as it's the closest to Shinganshina. Dot Pixis is stated here to be the highest ranking commander of the Southern Territory, which includes Trost itself. Pixis is also described as an inveterate eccentric here and says he doesn't mind getting eaten so long as it's by a lady titan. Base as fuck. Imagine a 12-foot tall Sydney Sweeney with gigantic boobs just come out of nowhere and fucking squeezing the life out of you. I would bust everywhere. The trio of Eren, Mikasa, and Armin explain the current situation to Pixis, and even though the ideas they present are somewhat intriguing, Pixis has no concrete proof of everything, thus things don't go anywhere as far as the basement and the nature of the Titans goes. However, Pixis is more interested in the fact that Eren can be used as a weapon in battle, and with it, the chances of recapturing Trost are higher. He asks Armin if he truly believes that, or if it was a trick to preserve his life, to which Armin replies with both. Armin offers the idea that with his Titan form, Eren can walk over and plug in the hole that was caused by the colossal titan with the boulder from earlier. Eren says that it's possible that he can do that, and Pixis rejoices. Eren interestingly mentions that the titans aren't their only enemy here, and the plan goes into action. Daz, the guy who's going to commit suicide in front of Sasha earlier, cries about having to go into battle again, which by the way is something Sasha doesn't do, so that's 1 point on the board for Sasha and -1 points on the board for Daz. Fucking loser. Anyways, Daz, if that's even your name, makes a big commotion, and a lot of the garrison banter amongst themselves about the possibility of revolting in some way so that they don't have to die to the titans or deal with the authority of their commanders and captains. Pixis talks about how before the titans started terrorizing the humans, they used to fight amongst one another due to different ideologies and tribes clashing with one another. Pixis asks Eren for his opinion on this, to which Eren has no clue and simply describes it as rosy or outright dull. Even now, with the titans murdering and destroying humans, they still lack any unison or amiability. Hans is pretty pissed since he's Eren's commander, and the fact that he's standing next to him is a pretty dishonorable to his position, but Hans, you're also a fucking loser, so I personally think if Eren wanted to stand over you and stomp on your balls, he has every reason to do so. Pixis calls the soldiers for their attention as he relays the plan to his fellow people. Eren is introduced as the first known human capable of transforming into a titan, and the plan is to protect him from the other titans while he does so. Since titans are more attracted to groups of people rather than one individual at a time, the best strategy would be to lure titans away from Eren while he pursues his goal. Armin disagrees with this plan, and from here they strategize based on a number of factors. The first being that Eren has no guarantee of being able to carry the boulder while a squad is protecting him. The second being that they're limited for time. Titans can breach the wall and disrupt the plan at any moment. Finally, the soldiers in question can only operate for so long before most succumb to fear and become disenchanted. The last reason is pretty apparent as most soldiers attempt to leave, and before the discipline, Pixis surprisingly says that anyone who leaves will go unpunished, simply due to the fact that if they've succumbed to fear, they were never meant to protect anything in the first place. But he cleverly mentions that anyone who wants their family to experience that same feeling should also leave. Soldiers return hearing this, wanting to not lose any hope they had left for the future. Eren takes on the burden of all the people he knows, becoming their hope as Pixis goes on about Wall Maria. He mentions that they were only able to survive due to the fact that brothers and sisters in arms were forced to go outside the wall to eliminate the enemy, and that alone is humanity's sin. If Titans win here, it'll be due to the fact that humanity gave up on itself and were at odds with each other, and the fault would only really lie on the people who caused this. If you're given the choice, die for a greater cause rather than the selfishness of preserving one's life, just as Eren did. Eren claims once more that humanity will win this battle, and the chapter ends with Eren declaring their attack on the Titans. Hey, that's the name of the manga. Nice name drop, Isayama. So I kind of lied though. That's not the end of the chapter. Eren transforms into the Attack Titan, and Mikasa claims that Eren has the strength to guide them. The chapter ends with Eren confusingly punching a hole through a building, possibly giving into the violent nature of the monster he swore to become. Episode 13, Wound. The chapter opens up with Pixis claiming that the 20% of soldiers lost wasn't for naught, and that they died for the greater survival of the human race. We cut back to Eren nearly killing Mikasa by punching her in his Titan form, as it's pretty evident that he's lost control. Mikasa tries to get through to him, but she's not successful as Eren punches a hole through his own head, leaving him disabled for the time being. The squad members consider a new plan, with this one having lost all of the momentum built prior. Despite this, Pixis does not call anything off. Giving up easily would be unacceptable. Back to Eren and Mikasa's squad, there's a heated debate on whether or not leaving Eren or protecting him would be the best course of action. Commander Ian claims that he was given the responsibility of commanding this squad, so whatever he says goes, and that protecting Eren is the best option right now, even if people have to die in the process. Rico on the other hand disagrees, but after an intense conversation, the group agrees to have faith in Eren. There's a short commentary here that I think is worth pointing out. It seems as though in the end it doesn't matter what humanity does, because in both scenarios in this context, and for that matter within the bigger picture, they will always be controlled and dominated by the Titans, ally or foe. The essence of being human is trying things that may not work in the end, and although the story portrays this as a pitiful idea, I believe it to be the most beautiful part of the human experience. They're given a purpose, a mission to overcome their struggles and hardships. no matter how impossible the situation seems to be. Rico agrees with Ian's plan and he calls Eren Mikasa's boyfriend. If I was Eren, I would back Mikasa off the sole fact that she tosses him around like a rag doll, and that's what every good man needs. Eren fails to regenerate and contemplates on how he's simply sitting in a decapitated vessel, unable to move to help his family and actualize his ideals and goals. A powerless man in a powerful vessel. We cut to a vision Eren has with Mikasa and his family before he goes back to sleep within the vision and in real life. Armin finds Eren questioning what exactly it is that he's doing. We cut to Mikasa and Co battling the Titans as they move closer to Eren, and it's revealed that the Titans are drawn more to Eren than anyone else. The plan falls apart as Armin stands on the back of Eren's vessel and strikes Eren's weak point in an attempt to wake him up. Armin begs Eren to wake up, but it's unsuccessful. All Eren wants to do at this point is drown in darkness and sink deeper into his unconsciousness. There's a small break where we see that Sasha is getting a cooking battle arc. I don't know about you guys, but I am way more hyped for this than whatever's in that stupid ass basement. We cut back to the struggle against the Titans and a dive into Eren's psyche here. He questions whether anything he desires to do is the correct path. Why should he pursue those things? Why doesn't he just comfortably live the rest of his life as a mediocre civilian? The chapter ends with another mention of the outside world and Eren's eyes widening at the thought of such a thing. Episode 14, Primitive Desire. Alright, so I made a small mistake. Whether it was the site I'm using or fuck up on how the volumes cohesively follow each other is irrelevant. All you need to know is that from what I'm reading, the story combines chapter 13 and the beginning of 14 into one chapter. Not a big deal as we'll continue where we left off, but I thought it was worth mentioning here. Armin mentions the fact that Eren already knew hell was waiting for him outside the walls. Why did he want to see it so bad in the first place? Well, it's pretty obvious to Eren. He was born into this world and thus he has the right to see and learn about everything that resides within it. It is for his taking, and if the world is to be cruel, harsh, and unfair, let him experience all the beauty that juxtaposes it in the first place. Eren transforms once again and lifts the boulder, and the soldiers must protect him at any means necessary. Someone threatens to fuck the Titan in the ass with a blade and the Titans run after them instead of Eren, which in my professional opinion is a great war strategy that should be used more in the real world. Pure human spirit pushes Eren beyond his limits as he soldiers through with the boulder he was assigned to carry. All that he can focus on is those words Armin asked him. Why did you want to go to the outside world? When we're born into this world, everybody is free. People who reject that, no matter how strong or important they are, don't matter. Anyone who sees the things that Armin describes is truly free, because to be free is to see the truth for what it is, and the world established within the walls is simply one that's far too limited. To value your life over something like that is humanity's greatest sin. It doesn't matter how terrifying the world is. It doesn't matter how cruel the world is. You must fight for what you believe is right, not in your mind or even your heart, but the depths of your soul that echo throughout the land. Fight for another day closer to what you truly desire. Fight for the ones you love with all of your being. Fight for who you truly are deep down past what everyone else is led to believe. Fight for a greater future. Eren plugs in the hole successfully, and for the first time in history, humans finally won a battle against the Titans. Eren comes down with a fever and he's barely able to see the wings of freedom, and the chapter ends with Levi rescuing Eren and Armin. Even though humanity has won, it doesn't necessarily matter as they cannot revel in victory. Too many lives were lost in the process, and the future as we know it is uncertain. Episode 15, One by One. The chapter kicks off with a few soldiers talking about the land and the lack of care over the seasons. Due to this, there's a heavy lack of cultivation and food seems to be on the lower end this time of year. A few civilians look at a child, Mikasa and Eren, telling them not to become cowardly or useless soldiers just as the men earlier in the chapter had. Eren looks on to a distressed Armin who is furious at the current situation, blaming his parents' death on the lack of resources available and the selfishness of the military police. We cut back to an older Armin who's being pushed around by one of the instructors. The instructor calls Armin a maggot and even goes as far as saying Armin's name is stupid. Fun fact, we learned that Armin's grandfather named him as such, and Armin is actually a German name that stands for hope, protection, and guidance. A clear call to his role in the story and his relationship with Mikasa and Eren. The instructor asks Armin why he wants to train, and Armin responds by saying saying that he wants to dedicate himself to humanity's struggle against the Titans. Two soldiers point out that the instructor's bullying is simply a rite of passage to see if anyone has any balls. They also note that some people simply aren't given this rite of passage since they've already experienced one, and we get a glimpse of Annie's emotionless face as the instructor approaches her. Eren, Mikasa, Reiner, Bertholdt, and Ymir are left alone, but the instructor isn't so kind to Jean, and headbutts him when Jean says he wants to join the military police to live on the interior. Marco is next on the list, and when he tells the instructor that he wants to devote himself to the king, the instructor notes that while it's an admirable goal, Marco is way too scrawny to even entertain that idea. Connie is next, and before he can even be asked any questions, the instructor lifts him off of his feet by his head and explains that Connie saluted him wrong, as the soldiers are meant to salute on their left side rather than their right to show their dedication to the cause. Poor baby girl Sasha is next, unfortunately, as she's seen eating while the others are disciplined. "I love you so much, Sasha. You are so precious to me." The instructor yells at her, but she practically ignores him, simply enjoying her food. Sasha swallows her food and gives a great salute before being asked about what she's eating, and it's just a potato. "I love you so much, Sasha. You are so precious to me." The instructor asks why she stole a potato, and Sasha responds with the fact that potatoes lose their taste when they get cold, so it's best to eat them as soon as possible. The instructor asks her the same question again, and Sasha looks at him, confused on what exactly it is she's asking. Everybody turns to Sasha because she's the best Attack on Titan character and offers half of her potato to the instructor. Unfortunately, instead of rewarding her for one of the most courageous things I've ever seen, she's punished and is forced to run laps for an unspecified amount of time. But Eren makes it clear that she's been running for at least 5 hours now. Eren and company talk about where he used to live before the attack, and everybody is enamored with the fact that Eren has seen the colossal titan. They ask Eren what an actual titan looks like, and he nearly throws up at the memory of his mother being devoured by one. Eren's hatred snaps him back to reality as he tells the group that, with the mastering of the vertical maneuvering gear, killing the titans won't be much of a challenge. Eren, however, is interrupted by Jean basically calling Eren a pussy, but the two end up making a truce. Jean tries to rizz up Mikasa but fails miserably. She leaves with Eren and the two have a brief conversation about her hair, the thing that Jean complimented her for, and she agrees to cut it, basically shitting all over whatever Jean thought in that moment for Eren, and she even goes as far as asking him how low she should cut it. Poor Jean. Just kidding, fuck you. Jean wipes something on Connie's shirt and says he's lost his faith in humanity, which is actually pretty realistic. When dudes get rejected by a girl, they pretty much lose all hope in the world. Poor baby girl Sasha passes out after she finishes her running for the day as she just wanted to try something new. As Krista approaches the unconscious Sasha, she quickly gains consciousness again, and with the appearance of what seems to be a titan, she grabs a piece of bread out of Krista's hand with her mouth, and Krista offers her some water afterward. Baby girl Sasha calls Krista God, and I want to stop the video here. "Sasha, you are the closest thing to God, not this random blonde bitch." Anyways, Ymir joins the fray and asks them what's going on. She attempts to critique Krista for trying to do a good deed, and I just want to make it clear, Ymir, you're a piece of monkey shit compared to Sasha, so I'd watch my mouth if I were you, skank. The two help Sasha to bed, and we cut to the next morning where we see that the group is training their usage of the vertical maneuvering gear, and everybody seems to be successful except for Eren, who gets tangled in his gear and is scolded by the instructor. The chapter ends with Eren angry at himself that everybody can use their gear besides him. Okay, two things. So it's clear that this is obviously a small exposition and backstory on Eren in the main cast. I didn't mention this earlier since I wanted to treat this as if it were my first read through, even though it's not, but I wanted to make that clear in case anyone was confused on when Eren is failing at the vertical maneuvering gear despite getting a clean hit on the colossal titan. My bad for not establishing this earlier for the people with a little less brain power. The second thing is that I know this bald angry instructor guy is named Keith, but I have no respect for him and he's a piece of trash to me, so I just call him the instructor. Also kind of weird that he's black in the anime, but whatever, Isayama, it's your story, not mine. But I have personally never met a black person this uncool. Episode 16, Necessity. The chapter starts off with Mikasa and Armin attempting to help Eren master the vertical maneuvering gear. However, Eren quickly fails and we cut to the two carrying an unconscious Eren through the town. People make fun of Eren for wanting to destroy the Titans, yet he can't even get the basics down, which leaves Eren in a state of bewilderment. Mikasa once again attempts to persuade Eren not to be a soldier and instead take on a much safer and easier role. If he dies, there's a large chance that it will be in vain and all his goals and dreams would be for nothing, which Eren quickly rejects. As things progress, it's pretty clear that Mikasa just wants a normal life for her and Eren. Deep down, she despises the violence and simply just wants to keep whatever is left of her and family alive. It's not that she doesn't believe in Eren, but that he means everything to her. If he leaves her by surpassing her or by chasing his dreams, she'll lose everything and her direction in life will be uncertain. Her life's purpose ever since that fateful day has been to protect him. If he's gone, what exactly is she living for? The coldness of the world seeps in the closer he draws to death. Baby girl Sasha asks Mikasa for her food, but Mikasa eats it in front of her in awkward silence. Poor baby girl Sasha. Why is she getting shit on so much? Ymir comes in reminding Sasha that she was supposed to get water for her and Krista, and Sasha nervously agrees considering the fact that Ymir saved her life. Eren goes to the guys asking them for help, but they all make fun of him in the process. Marco recommends inquiring with Bertholdt and Reiner since they received high marks. The group of Eren, Armin, Bertholdt, and Reiner talk about their upbringings and how ridiculous it is that Eren and Armin experienced the colossal titan firsthand and still want to be soldiers. Reiner and Bertholdt reveal that they came from the mountains south of Wall Maria and that they were unaware of its breaching prior to them actually showing up, them being the Titans. Bertholdt compliments Eren and Armin for their mindsets, telling them that they're extremely different from everyone else because they have their own distinct purposes for becoming soldiers. Bertholdt claims that he has no will of his own and that he's simply being a soldier for the purpose of being a soldier. He envies the heroic mission. Eren talks about how everybody thought he was crazy for wanting to be a soldier. Even though he's fearful of the Titans, his hatred is far stronger than whatever fear he holds towards them. Reiner talks about the fact that his purpose is simply to make it back home as there's something he needs to accomplish, whatever that may be. Reiner tells Eren that he'll do well tomorrow as the two formally introduce themselves. The day comes where Eren must take the final test. If he fails, he'll be sent back to the settlement and he'll have to give up becoming a soldier. If he succeeds, he'll become a soldier and he'll be able to pursue his mission further. Despite not being as physically gifted as his peers, his willpower is far greater than anyone else on the field. It's all he has. Eren goes to perform and even aces it for a few seconds, but he quickly fails and is given the same result as before. A moment of silence falls on the area and Eren begs and pleads to be given another chance, but it's revealed that Eren's equipment had been defective the entire time, and that the tool is designed so that if you fall, you won't hit your head. Eren passes the test and stares down Mikasa, telling himself that he really can become a soldier. Mikasa interestingly points out that Eren is relieved that he won't be separated from her, and the chapter ends with the instructor thinking about Dr. Jaeger's son taking his first real steps towards becoming a real soldier. From this point on, I'm going to be referring to Eren's dad by Grisha. I just didn't before because he wasn't called by name officially until this point in time. We also get a brief exposition on the vertical gear and the training process behind the early stages of acquiring them that I'll leave up on the screen for a few seconds if you're interested. They talk about specifically sabotaging combatants, specifically to see if they die from something so minuscule, testing whether or not they're actually fit to battle against the Titans. Episode 17, Delusions of Strength. We get a 2-year time skip with Eren and Reiner doing combat training together. Eren being so strong now he can flip somebody much larger than him on their back. Eren makes a pretty good point that the combat training is sort of useless considering the fact that the Titans are like twice as large as the average human is. Not to mention the fact that the group is practicing with wooden knives instead of real ones. Eren makes a callback to the day he saves Mikasa, telling Reiner that the combat skills they're learning wouldn't really work in the real world unless you had a sheer amount of luck. Grisha's words still haunting him from that day. He refers to the training as child's play and Reiner understands what he means. He makes a point on the fact that the day will come where you must protect what's truly important to you. The training may seem unimportant or ridiculous, but mastering these skills can save somebody's life in the future. There's a certain responsibility in being a soldier that Eren isn't acknowledging, and he takes notice of this, shaming himself for not realizing this earlier. Reiner notices Annie and tells Eren that he'll teach her how to use a dagger and be a true soldier. He makes fun of her height and tells Eren to take her on in training. The two square up, but Annie quickly and easily takes Eren out by kicking him in the leg and tripping him. Annie asks if she's done, but Reiner states that the spar ends once you disarm your opponent, taking their dagger away from them. Eren tries to reason with Annie as the way she's going about training here is wrong, but she grabs Eren by the face and arm, kicks him once again and sends him tumbling to the ground, easily winning the match between the two. She tosses the dagger to Reiner and tells him it's his turn. Reiner hesitates, but Eren tells him to teach her the responsibility of being a soldier. He thinks about it and agrees before getting laid out just as Eren did. Eren notes that Reiner is nearly twice her size and that her technique is admirable, asking her who taught her. Annie answers with the fact that her father taught her how to scrap. She mentions the fact that none of the hand-to-hand combat actually matters and that the vertical maneuvering training is worth the most amount of points, which is her rite of passage to living inside the interior. She makes a good point about how the people most equipped to deal with the Titans are kept the furthest from them, insulting the system and calling it a farce. Perhaps that was human nature. Her father was similar to Eren and Reiner, men who simply believe in ideals that have nothing to do with reality. Even as a child, she saw through it, and at an early age, the rose-colored glasses came off as she was introduced to reality through training. She refuses to pretend as if being a soldier is an enjoyable or desirable experience like everybody else. We cut to dinner and Jean yapping about pretty much nothing. They briefly discuss how the vertical maneuvering gear wasn't really touched on or innovated until recently, and to keep the techniques alive, they established the promise of living within the interior, the safest part of the Attack on Titan world. Eren questions whether or not sacrificing the skill for the promise of safety is a cohesive system and ends up getting into another argument with Jean. The two end up getting physical and Eren eyes Annie and Reiner before he uses the same technique Annie used earlier to disarm and end Jean's career. He questions Jean's determination, asking him how he can call himself honorable or a soldier if he believes life is simply meant to be lived comfortably. A lot more nuance added to their dynamic, paralleling each other's ideals and worldview perfectly. Before the two can get into it any further, Keith comes in and questions all the commotion in the room. Mikasa steps up and tells Keith that the noise was Sasha farting really loud. Poor Sasha. Isayama just shitting all over her. He tells her to learn some self-control. Sorry that Sasha has natural bodily functions, you fucking bald bitch. Jean and Eren end up agreeing to spar against each other during training the next day, and Eren ends up asking Annie whether or not she thinks Jean is actually working hard or not, to which she responds not really, and that he's not training to be a good soldier but is instead training to get one over on Eren. The two end up continuing their conversation as Eren asks her what she thought of his kick on Jean, and Annie says it sucked, but if it's something he's interested in learning, she wouldn't mind teaching him. The chapter ends with Eren telling her no before she insists and kicks the shit out of him again. We get a brief description of the blades used to kill Titans as they're forged in blast furnaces and factory towns. The blades are currently the only way humans can kill Titans, and they're made from special materials that only the people of the towns know of. Episode 18, What Should I Do Now? The chapter begins with Keith scolding Armin for falling behind due to a lack of physical ability. Armin looks as if he's about to pass out, when Reiner saves him and takes the weight off of his back. The instructor notes that Reiner is strong and has gained the trust of his comrades. Armin takes his bag back, determined not to be useless. Keith notes that if Armin changed directions due to his lack of physical ability but a massive amount of intelligence, he would likely be something more than what he is now. The group is clearly doing simulation training against the Titans, and before Jean can get to the simulated Titan, Annie and Bertholdt cut him off, stealing his kill. Annie is described as a remarkable soldier, but someone who lives in solitude, refusing to cooperate with others. Bertholdt is described as someone who has mastered all the fundamentals and skills necessary to being a soldier, but lacks drive in his own will, often leaving decisions to others. While Jean is someone who is capable of mastering all the skills needed, he's hard to get along with as his personality is akin to that of a drawn sword, a perfect balance between an innocuous and violent state of being. Connie is effective at balancing himself and using his equipment, but suffers from being slow and often makes mistakes. Baby girl Sasha has remarkable instincts and is fast, but has no interest in any kind of structure or organized systems. Mikasa has mastered everything in the book and is unprecedented. easily being the best soldier out of this batch of characters. Eren has no skills outside of close combat, but through sheer willpower has continued to steadily improve his grades. Jean ends up scolding his comrades for stealing all of his kills, and Sasha violates him for being a whiner, telling him that there's no rules when it comes to everyone else's prey. Everybody else kind of agrees, and Eren points out that nobody got hurt during the training, which has to stand for something, right? He also mentions the fact that Marco ended up letting people secure some points instead of going for them himself. While competition is good for the group, Marco took into account actual combat strategies, luring Titans out in order for others to follow up and get the kill. A natural born leader, Eren says. Sasha agrees, even going as far to say that she would happily join a squad that he's commanding. Jean says he'd hop on the bandwagon too and take the chance to insult Eren, calling him a suicidal blockhead. Sasha violates him, calling him gay, and he tells her to shut up. Buddy, you're on thin fucking ice. Nobody, and I mean nobody, talks to Sasha Blouse like that. Jean also kind of violates Connie here too. Marco tells Jean that he'd make a way better leader than he would, to which Jean disagrees, calling himself a coward. We cut back to the current timeline, and unfortunately half of Marco's face is crushed as Jean looks on in guilt, as well as fear of what had exactly happened to him. The doctor makes note that what happened was pretty fucked up, but there's no time to mourn. They must dispose of the bodies before disease breaks out. Marco is confirmed dead, and we cut to Sasha, who unfortunately got a glimpse of Titan waste. We learn that they have no intestinal instincts and that they throw up once they've had too much human to chew on. Jean talks with Annie, discussing the fact that their training had meant almost nothing at this point, considering who died and the amount of people who did so. If a hell like this had awaited these characters, they wouldn't have even chosen to become soldiers in the first place. We can't even tell whose bones are whose. There's a curse in forming bonds with others in situations like this. Now Jean must face the consequences of his actions, and he must wonder who's going to die next. He makes it clear that he'll still fight, but he won't ever be as strong as Eren is. We cut back to the memory of Jean and Marco's conversation, and how there's actually merit in being a weak man yourself because you can empathize with others who happen to be weak. Jean is also good at recognizing what's going on in the moment. If someone who is weak, just as any human is, received an order from someone who was capable of looking at things from their lens, they'd follow them even if it meant giving up their life in the process. Jean changes his mind. He's going to join the Survey Corps instead of the military police, the first true sign of bravery from Jean. It takes a full day to clean up the remains of the Battle of Trost, and most of the Titans were killed with cannons outside of the wall. Eren and Levi confront Eren, giving him the rundown on things. We learn that Eren is currently imprisoned and almost indicted for that matter, as Eren reveals that he also took the key that Grisha initially gave to Eren before his disappearance. Levi is skeptical of Eren, but Erwin confirms the fact that Eren would have no reason to lie. To investigate Grisha's claims, the Survey Corps will need Eren's Titan strength to reclaim Wall Maria. It's theorized that the Colossal Titan, the Armored Titan, and the Attack Titan are of the same breed, and Eren's will is the key to freeing the human race of despair. Eren gets a flashback and is angered by Levi's insults, calling him scum and asking him what it is that he wants to do. Eren makes it clear that his only goal is to enter the Survey Corps and kill Titans, and the chapter ends with Levi being wary of Eren, letting him know that he won't hesitate to put him down if he's betrayed by him. And that is Attack on Titan's first 1 or 2 story arcs, depending on if you consider the first 2 chapters as its own thing. If you made it this far, you're the GOAT. Thank you for the love, and I will catch y'all in part 2. Peace.